Chapter 631. Amaterasu Black Flame. After a brief battle, it was outside the completely broken rock cave. Uchiha Itachi and Sasuke are looking at each other. At the moment of silence for half a second, the hands of the two people almost synchronized hand seal. Kaden Fire Style, Great Fireball Jutsu. Kaden Fire Style, Great Fireball Jutsu. Condensed from Chakra Kaden Fire Style in their mouths instantly. Was spit out. Hula, a violent flame suddenly appeared. That can make people melt, makes the whole rock group reflect the orange-yellow color. They were like roaring waves, and they began to devour each other. But when the two flames collided, they were stuck in the center of the two. Uchiha Itachi's Kaden Fire Style didn't suppress Sasuke's, and Sasuke couldn't suppress Uchiha Itachi's either. Is there still a lot of progress? Gongyi stood in the dark behind, quietly watching the battle between the two brothers in front. Although he knew Uchiha Itachi now, he still humbled Sasuke to the greatest extent. Gongyi is still quite satisfied with Sasuke's fighting power. At least for now, he is enough to let Sasuke be on his own with confidence. Cece's heat wave, although Gongyi has left far enough away, can still be felt. The air in the center of the two of them also began to twist at this moment, and it seemed that they could not bear the surging heat. After a short time, Gongyi now had a smile on his face, as Sasuke started suppressing Itachi. The terrifying spiritual perception can easily distinguish the power of two groups of scorching Kaden Fire Style. Now Sasuke's side of the fire wave, it seems to have gradually suppressed Uchiha Itachi's Kaden Fire Style. Uchiha Itachi, who was in the field, saw his Kaden Fire Style being suppressed gradually. The closed right eye slowly opened, and it could be seen that Itachi had already shed a line of blood and tears. Obviously, he has been using Mangekyo Sharingan's power forcibly, making him a very heavy burden. But Uchiha Itachi didn't care at all, staring straight ahead. Amaterasu. Om. As his voice fell, a black flame suddenly appeared in the center of the gradually suppressed fire wave ahead. Immediately, they began to rotate gradually until they became larger and larger, and the area where the black burned was also spreading. Just now, Sasuke, who had the advantage, began to look horrified, on his face illuminated by the firelight. The orange-yellow flames ahead were gradually swallowed up by the black flames that suddenly appeared. Although the Kaden's Fire Style that I made are very strong, they are gradually starting to fall into the disadvantage. And that black flame, under the gaze of Mangekyo Sharingan of Uchi's blood and tears, has been crazy expansion. Until now that Sasuke's fiery flame was gone, and it slowly dissipated. Did it appear? Seeing Uchiha Itachi's pupil technique, Gongyi didn't show the same horror as Sasuke. Now his face is full of playfulness, and he is still praising with a smile. The flames are swallowed up with flames. This Amaterasu is indeed a very strong pupil technique. Amaterasu, as long as you look at the place you want to burn with this ninjutsu, when you focus on it, black flames will be generated from the point of view. Gongyi murmured to himself. It seemed that this was the first time he saw Itachi's pupil technique, and he completely analyzed it. As long as the object's caught by the black flames, basically there is no way to escape, because it won't go out of its own accord until it burns out its target. Now all of this, Gongyi has long been aware of some of Uchiha Itachi's pupil skills. Amaterasu, which was speculated by White Zetsu in the original as the strongest physical attack, was called by Sasuke an attack that can never be escaped. Gongyi naturally needs to guard against such a terrifying pupil technique. When he first came into contact with Uchiha Itachi, Gongyi thought of a way to completely restrain it. Although Amaterasu is terrifying, it is not a threat to Gongyi. Of course, Amaterasu can only be used by those who have the eyes of Mangekyo Sharingan. And Gongyi knows that although this Amaterasu has extremely high heat and destructive power, it will cause too much burden on the body, the eyes will bleed when using it, and it will also have a great impact on the pupil power. Basically, unless the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan is turned on, or he has been relying on this pupil technique for a long time, it is estimated that he will also suffer backlash. So, although it is tyrannical, Gong Yi has no interest in it. When I studied it at first, it was just a habit of keeping a hand to guard against Uchiha Itachi. Come back to your senses. Gong Yi looked at Uchiha Itachi now and shook his head a little. Itachi's face was pale, and his life was not long. At this moment, seeing his blood and tears flowing uncontrollably, the whole person is also a bit miserable. Gong Yi knew that now Uchiha Itachi couldn't hold on anymore. Between the two brothers has basically begun to come to an end. Hula, that Amaterasu, who was thoroughly analyzed by Gong Yi long ago, is now chasing after Uchiha Sasuke to devour him. Uchiha Itachi, the Mangekyo Sharingan, kept chasing Sasuke who was dodging. In just this short time, Sasuke naturally analyzed that he could not be touched by this black flame. Matter what he is now, if he is touched by the strange flame of Itachi, he will definitely die without a place to be buried. With a few dodges, Sasuke kept going behind the rock. Fortunately, there are so many rocks around here, and it seems like I am obsessed with Gong Yi. Sasuke was not touched by Amaterasu, but those rocks were constantly being swallowed by black flames. Itachi, you really underestimate me. His face gradually gloomy, Uchiha Sasuke began to hand seal with both hands. Kaden Fire Style, Fierce Dragon Flame Jutsu. Kaden Fire Style, Big Fireball Burst Technique. The terrifying Kaden Fire Style is released one after another. Every time Sasuke is dodging behind the rock, Sasuke will unleash powerful Kaden Fire Style ninjutsu. Well, what the hell is he doing? Definitely hidden in the rock on the side, showing half of his head to watch the battle between the two brothers. He didn't notice Gong Yi behind him, who was still looking at Sasuke in confusion at the moment. It seems to be dodging, and using ninjutsu to start a counterattack to distract Uchiha Itachi. Here, Gong Yi, who has been quietly watching the battle between Sasuke and Itachi, put his arms around him in front of him. Gong Yi's face is not as confused now, but he is very appreciative of the secret, actually. Sasuke should have deliberately hit Kaden Fire Style into the sky, and then let the atmosphere heat up quickly, thereby causing updraft's cumulonimbus. That means he's making thunderclouds. Now Sasuke's behavior, although everyone is difficult to understand. But Gong Yi already knew exactly what Akatsuki wanted to do. Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, and push the latest chapters. Please keep this paragraph, otherwise you will be banned from collecting IP. Chapter 632. The Power of Nature. It seems that Sasuke doesn't plan to use his chakra energy now. Standing behind the entire core battlefield, Gong Yi muttered to himself, I'm going to use the energy generated by the huge atmosphere to use the Raiden Thunder style ninjutsu that I am best at. When Gong Yi's mind gradually thought of a certain picture, thick dark clouds began to float above the entire audience. Raindrops began to fall on it, and at the same time, in the dark cloud layer, there were still blue thunder and lightning rolling. Their rumbling sounds kept coming, and they seemed to be ready to burst out from within this dark cloud. Seeing everything in front of him, Gong Yi's appreciation for Sasuke became stronger. At this moment, Gong Yi can think that Sasuke's idea, the power he has created, is incomparable in scale compared to the nature transformation that uses chakra regularly. Crack! Above the heavy dark clouds, a azure blue thunder and lightning slanted down. The rumbling sound was deafening, causing everyone to look here unconsciously. Between Afei and Gui Deng Shuiyu and others has long since ended. All of them looked at the cloud-covered location. Seemed that he had endured it for a long time, and now the thunder and lightning in the dark clouds kept coming. Between Sasuke and Itachi has turned into a thunder battery at this moment, and the thunder is constantly flashing. The beating thunder and lightning are now all over the sky, as if the end of a thunder calamity is about to come. Just under Gong Yi's awareness, the power of Raiden thunder style erupted from Sasuke's palm. He stepped back and dodged, standing on the highest rock. Look of indifference. Sasuke is now staring coldly at Uchiha Itachi below. This ninjutsu is a lightning strike from the sky. I just guide this power to you. Said, the chaotic and noisy thunderbolt in the assistant gradually began to condense and compress. Oh, it sure is. Gong Yi listened to Sasuke saying this. And smiled even more. Now Itachi is very evasive. Now Sasuke relies on the power of the natural lightning around him, and they are not only powerful. And it only takes 1/1000th of a second for a thunder to fall, which is faster than the speed of sound. So, unless like Gong Yi has Hiraishin's art, or Six Paths mode can easily leave the attack range here. Otherwise, ordinary ninjas can only be devoured to pieces by their violent thunder and lightning. Using Kaiden fire style to create a scene. Standing below Sasuke, Uchiha Itachi gasped and had already analyzed. At the same time, I didn't choose to defend, but Amaterasu, who has been using dodge to avoid me, is also using Amaterasu's heat. With a faint smile that was equally satisfied, Uchiha Itachi had to say that Sasuke has really grown up. Sasuke to remain so calm in such a daunting battle now, and to be so meticulous. Lord Gong Yi seems to be really educated. Looking up at Sasuke in front of him, Uchiha Itachi coughed out Yuhi's blood while covering his mouth. Hehe, it seems that Amaterasu has a lot of grievances towards you. But you don't have to go anymore. Let this ninjutsu called Kirin end everything. Sasuke raised his hand, and the thunder and lightning in the sky began to find guidance, and they began to converge here. Today, I will use this Gong Yi teacher to teach me all the strength. Bring you back to Konoha village. Sheila, beating thunder and lightning, they began to converge into one huge Yuhi Hitomi Kirin. Sasuke pointed his hand towards Uchiha Itachi. Whatever. Corpse, I will take you back to this power. Ju stared blankly at everything in front of him, with a look of wonder on his face. Next second, Yuhi Hitomi Kirin produced by natural lightning, it drilled into the dark cloud above. Immediately, when it appeared again, it had begun to penetrate the clouds and came to Uchiha Itachi. The crackling sound seemed to be the only sound in the world. Azure blue light illuminates the surroundings as if entering a blue world. Boom! A deafening sound of explosion appeared in an instant. With Uchiha Itachi as the center, an invisible shock wave began to vent layer by layer. That is the power of the powerful thunder and lightning, the power of the residual power. The sound of banging and rumbling continued to appear, when the terrifying thunder and lightning Kirin disappeared in a flash and the smoke dissipated. That was like a rock labyrinth has now been razed to the ground and turned into rubble ruins. It's really powerful. Of course, the advantages of this technique are obvious. It has a wide range and extremely high attack power. It consumes less chakra and only uses the lightning of nature, and the speed is too fast to avoid. Gong Yi, who had already dodged away from Sasuke's lightning range, murmured quietly, however, the weakness is also obvious. Its appearance requires the cooperation of natural weather, and it is necessary to use Sharingan to see the speed and flow of lightning. Although it is very strong, as long as it is discovered by the enemy, the corresponding cracking will be very easy. Looking at the ruins in front of him, Gong Yi smiled faintly. However, it seems that Sasuke still remembers the teachings from the beginning. Raiden thunder style ninjutsu that can reach the level of power, but Gong Yi has instructed Sasuke before. Although it is very obscure, but now Sasuke has clearly understood. It's dangerous. The power of ninjutsu with the power of natural lightning is really powerful. On the other side, he was wrapped in 2 large leaves, and only then did he escape the explosion just now. Now the 2 leaves are slowly separated, and Ju looks at Sasuke with a lingering fear. As expected, he is a disciple of Gong Yi, and he can't be regarded as a normal ninja. It looks like this time, we must take the opportunity to kill him. Of yellow eyes gradually revealed a killing intent. keeping him will only become a stumbling block to our plan in the future. What's more, he's also a member of the 5th generation of Hokage. Must be hidden here, as if it were constantly talking to itself. Obviously now, he has already sentenced Sasuke to death in his heart. Now the whole Akatsuki has an unwritten rule, that is, as long as it is Gong Yi's people, they must do their best to kill them to prevent future troubles. Especially a genius like Sasuke, with great potential and rapid growth, then even more can't stay. Meanwhile, just as Sasuke stepped towards Uchiha Itachi lying there, he actually coughed twice. Chapter 633. The Last Ace. Cough, cough, cough. Just looking at Uchiha Itachi, who has lost his life fluctuations. He didn't die at all, but gradually supported his body with his hands. You can't even suppress him like this. Just as Sasuke was about to come to Uchiha Itachi, he immediately. The whole body was tense and burst back to 100 meters away. Looking a little unnatural, Sasuke bit Kiba and cursed, "Damn." Now the two have no idea how many rounds they have fought. Sasuke clearly knows. His chakra can no longer continue to support himself to fight like this. Strong ninjutsu. Uchiha Itachi seemed to stand up a little with difficulty. His mouth was already full of blood. If it wasn't for this, maybe it would really be killed. Hula. As Uchiha Itachi's words fell, orange flames began to erupt around his body. A whole piece of orange-yellow flames shrouded around Uchiha Itachi. Next second, huge ribs began to appear on it. At this moment, Uchiha Itachi's closed right eye also slowly opened to look at Sasuke. "You have really become stronger, Sasuke, then let you see my last trump card." The art of Susanoo. The amazing chakra meaning is constantly vented, accompanied by a steady stream of power. The bones above are quickly intertwined. While, a huge half-length skeleton frame appeared in front of everyone. Susanoo. When Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu opened their eyes, another kind of ninjutsu resided in those eyes. Seeing Sasuke's shocked face, Uchiha Itachi quietly looked at him and said, "So Sasuke, is this the end of your cards? If there is still hidden power, don't be reluctant to use it, because you are likely to die next." Uchiha Itachi's voice fell, the orange-yellow light skyrocketed, and a large amount of chakra was continuously injected. I saw that nerves began to appear on the newly formed skeleton, and immediately continued to organize and form skin. They covered the arms, body and head, and finally began to condense out the shocking armor. The face that was just revealed was gone, replaced by a mask that looked like a black tengu. Om! The orange pupils suddenly lit up. A half-length full-body giant staring at Sasuke in front of him. And Uchiha Itachi stood in it and walked towards Sasuke. "Why didn't you fight back? Because the chakra has been exhausted, so you can't do anything. Then your eyes are mine." Uchiha Itachi's face was already pale, and he began to get closer and closer to Sasuke. "You are still weak, then stand there and wait for me, until you are real." "You." Sasuke's face was as pale as paper at the moment. He kept trying to step back, and now his physical strength was really exhausted. As he is now, although he has borrowed the power of nature, he has released the ninjutsu of super ninjutsu power. However, the load on his body is still very heavy now, at least it is difficult for him to resist anymore. Looked at the towering giant in front of him, and Sasuke's heart began to show despair. Susanoo. Quote. Behind him, Gong Yi clearly saw Uchiha Itachi's last strength. Although it is only half body, it is still huge. Now Gong Yi can see it with the naked eye. Susanoo is indeed very attractive now, and its power has to be said to be very powerful. Of course, it is not very simple to open it. According to the original records, it is the third power that can only be unlocked by opening Mangekyo Sharingan. Susanoo, also known as the power of God. It symbolizes destruction, and everyone in the world says, as long as you see it once, you will inevitably die. It sounds a little scary, but in fact Gong Yi scoffs at it. Susanoo, it's just a Kekkei Genkai type ninjutsu with both offense and defense. Basically, the caster can choose to stand inside or outside the Susanoo, and when the caster moves, the Susanoo moves with it. At the same time, Susanoo can follow the caster's mind to make any action. Susanoo can also be used locally, such as only summoning partial arms, palms and other forms to fight. Therefore, you can attack if you advance, and you can defend if you retreat. Of course, historically speaking, its first caster was Indra, who inherited the eye of a fairy. Therefore, the descendants of Indra, the Uchiha family, who started Mangekyo Sharingan, also possess the basic conditions to perform this technique. It is indeed a very terrifying Kekkei Genkai, but it is also a myth by the people of the ninja continent. Susanoo, Gong Yi once dissected its essence. It is actually a materialized chakra, and then uses the huge chakra energy to transform into a humanoid state to surround the caster. The barrier formed by this chakra will naturally be ineffective for most attacks. Of course it's strong, but if you use it too much, it can also cause side effects. Susanoo should say, it is both the patron saint of the caster, is also the death that devours the vitality of the caster. Exclamation mark. In this way, Gong Yi once remembered seeing the content on the stone tablet, and also combined his knowledge of the original work in his mind. If you want to really be able to use Susanoo, you must open the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Only in this way can it not be affected by the backlash. Well, but now if he is like Uchiha Itachi, he can use it forcibly. But for him, Susanoo is a powerful double-edged sword. Uchiha Itachi, who is now terminally ill, it is an even greater burden. Gong Yi now knows that, as normal in this original book, Uchiha Itachi opens Susanoo. Naturally, he did not want to really kill Sasuke, but to let Sasuke get rid of Orochimaru's curse, which is why he wrote and directed such a scene. His real target wasn't Sasuke's eyes. From the very beginning, Itachi wanted to draw Orochimaru out of Sasuke's body and seal it with the Ten-Fist Sword. The Ten-Fist Sword, that is the power that can put the person it stabs into the world of demonic illusion like a drunken dream. At the same time, it also has the power to seal it permanently. It is a kind of kusanagi sword, the blade can be quickly retracted. The knife itself also contains seal art. Real purpose of Uchiha Itachi's use of Susanoo is to target Orochimaru. However, with his own appearance this time, Sasuke was not left with a curse mark, and at the same time, the spiritual mark of Orochimaru in Sasuke was completely wiped out by himself. So now Itachi, he released Susanoo, has another purpose. Chapter 634. Gong Yi standing here is actually not difficult to analyze. It's very simple. One of them is to watch him, who is spying on him. He was on guard against Afei to prevent him from making a sudden move. Put it bluntly, with Susanoo, Uchiha Itachi is protecting Sasuke. Second, he is demonstrating Sasuke the power of Susanoo. At the same time in the conversation between the two, Gong Yi also heard clearly. In disguise, Uchiha Itachi is telling Sasuke how to use Susanoo. Shaking his head, Gong Yi regained his senses. Looking at the location of the ruins ahead, the huge Susanoo was about to collapse. Gong Yi doesn't. I have to say, Uchiha Itachi is now a failure, or a success. From the beginning to the end of his life, Gong Yi also felt that he was very great. He may not be a good dutiful son, but he is a very good brother. Cough. What a wonderful eye, I can finally get it, ahem. Standing in the middle of Susanoo, Uchiha Itachi faltered. He walked, blood was constantly coughing out of his mouth, and he was obviously on the verge of death. The pale-faced Uchiha Itachi, step by step, came to Sasuke's eyes. Looking at the mighty Susanoo, the armor began to dissipate at this moment. Immediately, the skin began to dissipate to reveal the bones, and finally the huge half-skeleton frame gradually disappeared from the head. But now Itachi, he didn't care about these, but slowly raised his arms weakly. At this time, no matter what. Matter how Sasuke bombards, although Susanoo with absolute defenses slowly disappearing, it is still not something he can shake. You can see the current Sasuke, and he also began to be forced to a dead end with a face full of despair, with dense rocks behind. Now that he's weakened to ultimate, he doesn't even have the power to use the telekinesis. Forgive me, Sasuke, this is the last time. Looking at Sasuke who had stopped there, Itachi slowly stretched out his hand to Sasuke, his two fingers coming together at the moment. Next second, as if Uchiha Itachi was pumped up now, he finally rubbed Sasuke's forehead lightly. Just like in the beginning, memories began to slowly appear in his mind, and Uchiha Itachi finally couldn't support it and fell down. With a pair of dark pupils, Uchiha Itachi quietly stared at the sky, and he revealed a faint smile. Like, going back to the moment when I was young. The sky, which had just been clear, was now cloudy. After a while, it started to rain slowly. Was silence all around, and there was nothing but the sound of the rain that seemed to cry the poor dead. The icy raindrops kept hitting down, and Sasuke, who was already stunned, recovered his senses. Bloodstain of Yuhi, the orangutan on his forehead, was dripping down with the rain at this moment. Seeing that there was no life left, Sasuke's heart began to feel a sense of speaking. Quote. Sensing that Itachi's vitality was gradually diminishing, Gongyi closed his eyes and shook his head. Uchiha Itachi, an absolute defender of peace, because he has seen the cruelty of war, he must maintain the hard-won peace even with the most extreme means. But I have to say, all of this, and more, is actually completely meaningless. After all, with the current him, there is absolutely no way to go to Master's true so-called peace. Although he can do anything for the so-called peace, he can't attack his beloved younger brother no matter what. It seems that under this cold exterior, it hides the purest and purest affection. Do my best to bring happiness to everyone. But in the end, he was burdened with a village, and even the entire ninja world was cast aside and infamous. There is the misunderstanding of the younger brother, the ridicule of everyone and the hatred of anger. Gongyi thinks back on Itachi's life, and he is completely tragic. Although he has superb ninjutsu, careful thinking, and an IQ that almost meets the future. But I have to say that sometimes he thinks it is really ridiculous. Without absolute power, everything Itachi did was in vain. He was supposed to be a ninja admired by all people, but in the end he became a victim of this so-called peace. But even so, he saw all the contributions Gongyi made to Itachi. Whether it is himself as a Hokage or something, he naturally decides to prove it for Itachi in the future. At least what he interprets is no longer a tragedy, but more of a legend. The rain is still falling. The temperature around was suddenly cold. Cold raindrops, they keep dripping on the ground. Ju looked at everything in front of him, and his face showed horror. It's a liar, Itachi is actually dead. Did Sasuke actually win? Who has left the battlefield on the side of Ghost Lamp Shueyu, has a grim expression behind his mask. It's a fact that people can't accept willingly. Now with the mask Obito, his whole person's killing intent has been vented. Mask Obito looks casual and has a big heart. But he has already begun to guess that he was deceived by Uchiha Itachi from the beginning. Looking back on everything before, Uchiha Itachi didn't really want to kill Sasuke at all. And it should be said, now Uchiha Itachi. He was totally planned from the beginning. Have you given your pupil power completely to Sasuke? That are exposed alone have already begun to become Yuhi the gorilla. 3 black tomo on it, they started to turn slowly. The current mask Obito can't help but feel annoyed and angry. He simply did not expect that he had been secretly calculating the entire ninja world continent. This time, he was deceived by Uchiha Itachi, who had been following him all the time. Now he has evolved into Mangekyo Sharingan. Mask Obito's hideous face, Biting Kiba secretly said. Then Uchiha Itachi's eyes must not be reserved for him to open the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Now the 5th generation of Hokage, the power in his hands is already very strong. Hands gradually clenched his fists, and the mask Obito stood on a steep rock. He had already made a decision. It is absolutely impossible for this guy to return to the 5th generation of Hokage's side. With this terrible pupil power, he will never be able to return to Hokage. It will affect a lot of your plans. As Obito of the Uchiha clan now, he can clearly know how terrifying the Kekkei Genkei of Sharingan is. Especially the evolved Mangekyo Sharingan, and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Now the mask Obito, he won't make trouble for himself later. Thoughts, the mask Obito dodged and headed towards Sasuke. Chapter 635. Obito's Wrath. Hee, it looks like I can't stand it anymore. Standing here, Gong Yi turned his head to the other side. The terrifying divine consciousness shrouded all around, and any disturbance could not escape Gong Yi's perception. Especially now with the mask Obito, he doesn't have any hidden cold killing intent at all. Before Gong Yi, I thought about it, with the current situation on Akatsuki's side. If Obito knew everything about Uchiha Itachi, it would be paving the way for Sasuke. He will stop at nothing, and he will definitely let Sasuke die. Because Sasuke is his own disciple, and he is also a super helper in his own hands. If Sasuke has grown to such a terrifying level now, the mask Obito will naturally not be better. At least, it will have a big impact on his future plans. This kung fu is not the original, so Sasuke can't be led into Akatsuki by him. Sasuke is currently 100% going back to Konoha village to play for Gong Yi. So now looking forward, the mask Obito has come to Sasuke's eyes. Damn Akatsuki. Here, Sasuke, who was a little stunned, looked at the mask Obito that suddenly appeared. His face was full of hatred. I lost my most beloved brother and my most beloved clan. All of this, and now it's all Akatsuki's fault. Sasuke has an extreme personality, and now after watching Uchiha Itachi die, another Akatsuki member has appeared again, and his hatred is already monstrous. Go to hell, go to die. Forcibly squeeze the chakra. Now Sasuke has the last bit of power in his body, completely gathered in his hands. The sound of sizzling echoed around, and thunder and lightning kept beating above his palm. Chidori. With an already unsteady pace, Sasuke charged towards the mask Obito while biting Kiba. The current mask Obito, he looked at Sasuke indifferently, and he didn't seem to hide at all. And Sasuke doesn't care about it now, and presses the Chidori in his hand just right on his body. What? When Sasuke was only millimeters away from the mask Obito, the picture he imagined to kill him did not appear. But Sasuke's whole person actually immediately penetrated the past. It seems that the Akatsuki members in front of him are completely transparent, and there is no sign of being attacked by him at all. A loud bang came out, and the gravel in front was immediately shattered by Uchiha Sasuke. Countless rubble flew, and a small deep pit appeared behind the mask Obito. End this boring duel. Mask Obito turned around and looked at Sasuke, who was full of surprise, and said slowly, "You don't deserve such power now. Asshole." Holding back his last breath, Sasuke stepped back more than 10 meters away. He panted and looked at the mask Obito, his heart sinking to the bottom. Now it's a kung fu. It's hard for me to join Akatsuki if I want to defeat him. There is absolutely no need for the weak. The top missing nin in a certain village. And now I can see. The playful look of the guy before is gone. Very funny, even a bit idiotic, has long been overshadowed by the indifference and murderous aura. He didn't look like the one he saw before, he was completely different. Is it dead? Sasuke was completely at a loss. He just left the wolf's den, and now he has entered the tiger's den. Could it be that he really cannot escape death today, and his heart is full of bitterness, and now Sasuke doesn't know how to describe it? Front of this Akatsuki member, he should be very difficult to deal with. Especially the incredible speed just now, and the blur that is so bizarre that it can ignore ninjutsu. Either one is enough to give me a headache. Even in his heyday, it would never be easy to deal with him. What's more, now I have no power at all. Biting Kiba, Sasuke was extremely unwilling. Hee, my disciple doesn't deserve such power. Then, who deserves it? Just when Sasuke was cornered, a sarcastic laughter came out, echoing around. Yes. Absolute and Mask Obito, all at once. A cautious expression appeared on his face. Next second. With this voice, Sasuke only felt an extra hand on his shoulder. He turned his head sideways and saw that the dead gray appearance of the whole person disappeared in an instant. Instead, it was Sasuke's euphoria, Mr. Gongyi. I saw Gongyi now, he was standing beside Sasuke. The terrifying speed, no one can react at all. As if the current Gongyi, he seems to have changed out of thin air. You did a good job. Patting Sasuke on the shoulder, Gongyi had a smile on his face. Mr. Gongyi, Itachi. Looking up at Gongyi, Sasuke's face seemed a little complicated. Let's settle the matter here. Hands down, Gongyi stared at the Mask Obito in front of him. From the time I left at the ninja school, until now. Should be my first and most formal meeting with Uchiha Obito. Obito at this moment knows himself. But he never imagined it. Gongyi also knows him. This guy Obito, in fact, has to say that he is also a poor person. But now Gongyi doesn't care about these. There are many pitiful people, but Gongyi will not show mercy to those poor people who go against his will. Of course, now that he is a pawn to promote his plan, Gongyi naturally needs him too. So Gongyi didn't speak now, and exposed his true identity in front of Sasuke. 5 generations of Hokage. At this time, the current Mask Obito, he was also completely surprised. He never imagined that at this critical moment, Gongyi would come here in person. Mask Obito didn't know, but Gongyi had already left a mark of Hiraishin on Sasuke's body. As long as he wanted to, he could instantly appear beside Sasuke. My own disciple has gradually grown to such a height now. Then the future is the top fighting force in the Konoha village. Mask Obito wants to take advantage of the danger and use this opportunity to kill Sasuke, which Gongyi will never allow. At least now Mask Obito, those good things he thought, Gongyi will completely defeat it. At the same time, as the first meeting, it is also a good opportunity to form an opportunity for the next cooperation. Today, let Uchiha Obito see what real power is, and it is also a good choice. Chapter 636. Konoha Founder. 5 generations of Hokage, you have crossed the line too much. Seeing the appearance of Gongyi, Mask Obito did not have the joy of reuniting with his colleagues after a long absence. He is now behind the mask, his eyes that are exposed alone are chilling, and the chakra fluctuations all over his body are constantly pouring out. Mask Obito has no other thoughts about Gongyi except killing intent. Especially after seeing Gongyi's appearance, Obito couldn't help but think of Uchiha Itachi's situation, and his heart was filled with killing intent. How could he not know yet? There is a good chance that Uchiha Itachi has been around since the beginning, teaming up with Gongyi. At the same time, considering Sasuke's current situation, he can fully understand it. Invisibly, he raised tigers in Akatsuki. Although he masked Obito, he never trusted Uchiha Itachi. But this sudden feeling of being calculated makes the Mask Obito very uncomfortable. Oh. Hearing Obito's cold words, Gongyi said unmoved, is it because I crossed the line too much, or you stretched your hand too long? Hee. There was a half silence. Obito, who was a little emotional just now, he faintly sneered, 5 generations of Hokage, you are really arrogant. After a simple adjustment, the Mask Obito was no longer as angry as before. On the contrary, now he has gradually calmed down. No, It should be said that now that the matter is over, he no longer needs to be angry. Who the hell are you? Looking at the incomprehensible conversation between the two, Sasuke Uchiha looked at him and said in a low voice. Who am I? Sasuke, the mask Obito replied quite playfully, then you have to ask the 5 generations of Hokage beside you. Ask me. Shrugging, Gongyi seemed to pretend not to know, and said, should I call you Uchiha Madara, or should I call you Afe now? You sure know the Akatsuki thing well. Seeing Gongyi's appearance, Obito's face behind the mask showed more sarcasm. He naturally didn't know that Gongyi said this on purpose. Everything is just preparing for the next meeting between the two of them. If something is suddenly exposed too much, then it's not interesting. In this way, the current Gongyi is naturally disguised, which makes Uchiha Obito relax his vigilance. It is also setting aside more chips for the next meeting. Uchiha Madara. The speaker has a heart, and the listener is shocked at this moment. Sasuke's gloomy face showed disbelief after hearing Gongyi's words. Believe. Wide eyes, Sasuke looked at the mask Obito in front of him. How could you be Uchiha Madara? As a member of the Uchiha family, Sasuke Uchiha Madara naturally knows something. And just before, Uchiha Itachi revealed to himself using demonic illusion. He is one of the founders of Konoha, Wand Sharingan's first eye-opener. Is also the most powerful leader of the Uchiha clan. After so long, the old enemy Senju Hashirama died. Then Uchiha Madara, how could he still be alive? Hee, what a childish junior. Obito, who had gradually calmed down, looked at Sasuke's shocked expression, and he smiled sarcastically. The things you don't know about this ninja world are far more than you need to know. It's meaningless. Stop preaching. Looking at the mask Obito, he wanted to guide the two of them invisibly. Gongyi's handsome face showed a smile. Since you are not dead now, then I will kill you. You are the most innocent junior I have ever met. Hearing Gongyi's words, mask Obito's coldness has been vented around him. Now he, although mocking Gongyi, doesn't know anything at all. But for this guy in front of him, he already had the intention to kill. The current Gongyi is completely the #1 and biggest threat in the entire ninja continent. Well, taking this opportunity, maybe you can simply test him. What kind of growth has he grown to? It is also a good choice. For a short while, Obito looked at Gongyi as if he didn't know anything, which made him feel at ease. A clown who only knows to hide behind a mask still wants me to respect it. Gongyi swooped in, already raising his fist and bombarding the mask Obito. Then I'll teach you how to respect your elders. Uchiha Obito naturally understands the amazing speed of Gongyi. He didn't show a trace of panic, but smiled coldly. Hee. In midair, Gongyi's face showed an imperceptible playfulness. A fierce chakra force has been flooded in the fist wind. Boom! In an instant, the scene in front of the sky and the earth torn apart immediately appeared. The ground beneath everyone's feet trembled, as if an earthquake. Everything Gongyi imagined was completely without any deviation. When his fist hit the mask Obito, it didn't touch his entity at all. In the blink of an eye, it was like hitting the air, completely penetrating through. Except for the earth behind him, there is no entity that can bear his focus. Now you are nothing more than that. Gongyi, who had penetrated himself, mask Obito sneered contemptuously. Sideways, his body instantly materialized and grabbed towards Gongyi, who had already used inertia and couldn't turn his head back. Bang! When the mask Obito touched Gongyi, his expression suddenly changed. It's a clone. I didn't know when. Gongyi, who was attacking him, was not the real body. Space ninjutsu is good, but its shortcomings are easily exposed. An indifferent voice came from above Obito. Obito's scalp also felt a little numb when he felt a terrifying power coming. Although Gongyi didn't use his full strength, he was still very tyrannical. Without even lifting his head, Uchiha Obito immediately Dodge and dodge. Now that he has just materialized, he can't go virtual again in an instant. Were hit by Gong Yi under the current situation, the consequences would be unimaginable. Was another loud noise, and when the ruined bird looked down just now, 2 bottomless pits appeared. It can be seen that, despite not using ninjutsu, Gong Yi, who only relies on taijutsu, is still scary. Sasuke, Mask Obito, they are all by the side, enough to feel it. It seems that you have already studied my ninjutsu. To the other side, Obito sneered. I have to say, your research ability is indeed far beyond ordinary people. Seeing that Gong Yi has now discovered that his blurring belongs to the space ninja surgery, Obito is not surprised. At the level of Gong Yi, he can obviously infer it. But Obito is confident that he's far from being able to really see through. His own Hidemitsu, Kamui, is far stronger than the space ninjutsu he imagined. But while the mask Obito is still there, smug. He knows, the real clown is just him. Chapter 637. What a stupid guy. He has come to Sasuke's side again. Gong Yi looked ahead. Still, Obito, who thought he was in control, sneered. Now that he admits his time and space ninjutsu, he just wants to be Uchiha Madara's identity. After all, powerful time-space ninjutsu is not something that ordinary ninjas can master. In this way, now when he admits it, he can also bring himself better guidance. But what a pity, Uchiha Obito's behavior is very stupid in Gong Yi's eyes. If it weren't for the future, Gong Yi would completely expose him now. But now is not the time to talk about cooperation, so Gong Yi didn't talk about it anymore and let Uchiha Obito perform here. Of course, now he can't help but think about what kind of face he will have when he is exposed by himself later. Unconsciously, Gong Yi smiled. It looks like he has one more chip. Now his so-called space ninjutsu is nothing but the ability brought by Mangekyo Sharingan. Kamui. 4. This ninjutsu, according to the records in the original book, Gong Yi clearly knows. This is Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan's unique technique, which belongs to time-space ninjutsu. It can transport itself and any object into and out of its unique time and space. It takes a long time to absorb itself, but by absorbing and releasing itself, it can achieve the purpose of rapid movement. When absorbing itself and releasing it, you can quickly follow. When he uses time-space ninjutsu, he can also use the resonance of time-space ninjutsu to enter the space of others. In addition, the abilities of the eyes are not controlled together, but separate. Right eye, it can make itself incorporeal, that is, at the moment of being attacked, it will transfer the attacked part to a different space, which can be used to avoid attacks and pass through barriers. The only downside is the time limit. In the state of one eye, the attack can be cracked in 5 minutes without interval. Left eye, it can teleport the enemy's attack from a long distance, or the enemy itself can be a certain part of the body. Basically it can be used to attack and defend. The disadvantage is that it takes a certain amount of time to accumulate chakra. Gong Yi looked at Uchiha Obito in front of him. Naturally, I can't remember wrong, because Uchiha Obito's Sharingan himself has investigated it since the idea of the final plan came up. Later, he also paid special attention to Kakashi's eye. Well, after a long review, he felt that his inference was completely correct. Now Uchiha Obito's pupil technique is actually quite confusing to those who do and know. A pity that for Gong Yi, he is a god, but he has absolutely no effect. Of course, looking at Uchiha Obito's appearance now, I can actually shrug. His current abilities and behaviors have actually been seen through long ago, but he is still there, acting. If someone has touched Uchi Madara, then they can see through it instantly. After all, Uchiha Obito's acting is clumsy. But there is no way, for my future plans, I can only go here and accompany Uchiha Obito to perform. That can be taken out, which is actually a good choice. Well, let's stabilize Uchiha Obito first. Jiraiya is there now and will be leaving in a few days. So I can use Jiraiya's side to kill Nagato. At that time, Akatsuki's side is completely broken. At the same time, on the side of the Four Tails, who have already started to revive, they also need a master. In this way, Uchiha Obito's identity, plus Four Tails and Kyuubi, Nine Tails chips. I can have enough possibilities to completely lead Uchiha Obito by the nose. This time, in the Fourth Ninja War, he will become behind the scenes. As long as you control it effectively, you can reduce the loss of your own power and increase the casualties of the rest of the village. It's actually space ninjutsu. No wonder he was completely immune to my ninjutsu just now. Hearing Gong Yi finish, I saw Uchiha Obito admit it deliberately. Now Sasuke, he is very cautious. Especially now that he has passed this ninjutsu, he has indeed begun to feel terrified in his heart. He sees in front of him is really Uchiha Madara's current news makes Sasuke feel a little upset in his heart. Such a thing is enough to shock the entire ninja world continent. No one would have thought that, in the era when the ninja world just started, there is such a terrifying guy who actually survived. With Itachi's death, and now the rest of his life, Uchiha Madara will suddenly appear again, and Sasuke's heart begins to have a mixed taste, a little unspeakable. Dust to dust, dust to dust. Gong Yi didn't care about the others, he just put on a more playful expression on his face. Since everyone thinks you're dead, I think you should really die. Hee hee. The mask Obito standing there, sneered after hearing Gong Yi's sarcasm. I don't think you can say such a thing. The tone was mostly disdain, and the pupils that were exposed alone looked at Gong Yi contemptuously. At least I don't think the current you are strong enough to keep me here. I can't keep you here. Gong Yi shrugged, showing no signs of anger at all. A clown who hides behind and uses Akatsuki, who dares not even show his true face, and who is truly incompetent. I think it should be you, right? Is there no real power? A little unhappy inside, Uchiha Obito looked at Gong Yi. So you think so? As you guessed, that's exactly what I thought. Gong Yi nodded in agreement, almost sneering. Now do you really think you see through everything? Actually I think it's just the opposite. The real clown, when you think it's someone else, is often you or yourself. Don't provoke me here. Mask Obito's eyes were cold, and Gong Yi's words completely pierced his sore spot. Since you want to try, then I will do it for you. As you wish. Gong Yi raised the corners of his mouth, and the smile on his face became even more prosperous. Stop such meaningless conversations, and show your true strength. Om. A shocking mass of chakra suddenly vented out. Now that Gong Yi is here, it is naturally impossible to easily let go of the mask Obito. Even if you don't kill him, you have to make him suffer a little. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, and push the latest chapter. Baidu search 99 Playmate find 99 Novel Network and LT. Please keep this paragraph, otherwise, block the collection of IP. Chapter 638. Simple test. If you want to try it. Feel the chakra burst of Gong Yi ahead. Uchiha Obito sneered, not showing panic. Then I will fulfill you. Now, although unbelievable, I feel that Gong Yi is very powerful. But Uchiha Obito knew that he couldn't back down so easily. If you retreat without fighting, then you will be hit in the face invisibly. Of course, with the improvement of the current secret strength. Uchiha Obito also has self-confidence, and she can compete with Gong Yi. After all, what Gong Yi has developed over the years is his own power rather than strength. Like Nagato, he didn't think Gong Yi would be as strong as he used to be. Because now he has also grown up. His thoughts stopped. Uchiha Obito hand seal with both hands. Doden Earth style Earth Dragon hidden technique. Still, when Gong Yi didn't make a move, Obito had already chosen to strike first. The whole person was visible to the naked eye, and instantly sank to the ground. Seeing that Uchiha Obito wasn't standing and waiting for his attack, Gong Yi's face was still a smile on his face, and it seemed that there was no tension at all for him in this battle. No, it should be said that in the entire ninja world, since he merged with Ten Tails, no one has been able to make him take it seriously. Looking at Obito at the moment, Gong Yi just murmured lightly, "Is it because I am afraid that I will discover his weakness in Kamui and will instead attack actively?" As if he had guessed, Gong Yi shook his head. "It's really useless." Kaden Fire Style Flurry. Next second, a low shout came out. When Uchiha Obito appeared again, he was already behind Gong Yi. Hula. Use Kamui to distort the surrounding space and start creating a howling storm. A majestic flame spit out from his mouth, like a huge fire snake. As soon as the flames condensed by Kaden Fire Style Chakra appeared, they began to swirl towards Gong Yi. The scorching heat wave hits my face. Even though I am 100 meters away, I can still feel it clearly. Although it is an ordinary Kaden Fire Style, when it is released in the hands of Uchiha Obito, its power is completely multiplied. Kaden Fire Style Fire Dragon Jutsu. Seeing the coming of ninjutsu, Gong Yi's reaction was very fast. Just as Sasuke stepped back beside him, he had already formed his hands in India. His mouth bulged, and he spit out violently forward. The flames burst out like a tsunami. Immediately after they begin to manifest, condensed and transformed into a flame dragon. A pair of yuhi-colored pupils immediately brightened, and a raging flame burned on the body. Air began to distort, and the surrounding area made people feel a little hot and couldn't breathe. Roar! The fierce flame dragon, with its huge mouth open at this time, collided with Obito's Kaden Fire Style. The previously unstoppable Kaden Fire Style Hurricane was completely irresistible after touching the flame dragon. Visible to the naked eye, it was completely swallowed by Gong Yi's Kaden Fire Style. Countless flames sputtered sporadically, and thick smoke billowed. Just looked at the fire enough to be turned to ashes. Under Gong Yi's Kaden Fire Style has no effect at all. The sound of sizzling continued to appear, and the light rain that was falling from the heavy dark clouds above began to evaporate. The area of Kaden Fire Style in front of Gong Yi seemed to be a vacuum, and no raindrops could fall at all. Kaden Fire Style, the dying black smoke, the steam evaporated by the raindrops above, all began to intertwine and mixed into the sky. Pieces of rock below, and even the burned Tong Yuhi, makes people terrified. Okay, so strong. Who had come to the periphery of the battlefield, opened his mouth and exclaimed at the power of Gong Yi's ninjutsu. This is Sasuke's teacher, rumored to be able to suppress the 5 generations of Hokage in the ninja continent, which had just finished entanglement with Afe, came here at this moment. Ghostlight Shueyu and Shigego rarely did not speak at this moment. It can be seen that a piece of Yuhi has been illuminated by flames on the battlefield ahead. They're helpless Akatsuki members just now, it's already at this moment. Dodge away. But Gong Yi in front of him stood there indifferently, without the slightest movement. When the two are compared next time, you can clearly see which is stronger and which is weaker. Although it's just a Kaden Fire Style ninjutsu duel, there are a lot of them. Damn. Hula, after seeing his Kaden Fire Style being swallowed, Mask Obito bites Kiba and activates Kamui. Doden Earth Style is turning the palm of the sky. Just use the pupil technique to avoid Kaden Fire Style of Gong Yi, and the Mask Obito is still not relieved. Suddenly, an indifferent voice came from his ear. Immediately afterwards, he only felt that his eyes were even more black. That is enough to cover the sky, and the sun in front of it comes and snaps it. How is it possible? Obito, who was a little annoyed just now, showed disbelief on his face behind the mask. Now he seems to feel that Gong Yi is, as if he knows where he is going. I arrived here, this Doden Earth Style ninjutsu has already fallen. Well, Obito guessed right. Gong Yi's seat of consciousness, now accept. It can perceive objects visible in all directions. Space ninjutsu like Obito, Gongyi can also perceive the momentary rippling movement he produces. In front of him, the crackling sound of whirring kept appearing, as if the Doden earth style in the palm of a giant pierced the air, and it fell violently with a world-destroying trend. A loud bang, shaking the entire area for thousands of meters, as if it produced a kind of doomsday where the earth shook and the mountains shook. The whole place was just a rubble, and it was smoothed out by the palm of the sky, revealing a huge deep pit. Bastard, he is still so powerful. Doden earth style dodging Gongyi again, Mask Obito bit Kiba and looked at Gongyi in front of him. His smile seemed to be sarcastic, and also seemed to have a trace of playfulness. This feeling made Uchiha Obito feel very uncomfortable. Uchiha Madara, who is famous all over the ninja continent, is still nothing more than that. Standing in the field, Gongyi, who seemed to have not moved, sneered at the corner of his mouth. It seems that you are still the same as before, and you can only escape. Damn. Hearing Gongyi's sarcasm, Mask Obito did not turn into anger like ordinary people, immediately. All the power burst out to fight back. With his hands clenching his fists now, his face was cold, as if he had suppressed his anger. He naturally knew that now was not the time to reveal everything. Of course, the same goes for Gongyi. He just used ordinary Doden earth-style ninjutsu and Kaden fire-style ninjutsu, and he didn't even use his own Jindan. It is always a foolish choice to reveal one's strength too early. Although the two seem to be fighting for their lives, they are actually just a simple test. Chapter 639. The Ultimate Behind-the-Scenes Boss. Mr. Madara, it's time for us to leave. If you don't go, it will be a lot of trouble. After the two fought several times, Ju slowly revealed half of his head behind Uchiha Obito. Now he can clearly feel that many strange chakras have begun to appear around him. Apparently, due to the vibrations created by ninjutsu, the ninjas from the village of Iwagakure have long been attracted here. Iwagakure village is in a tense state just now that they have just captured the tailed beast. So now that there is a big battle on the periphery, Iwagakure village naturally sent heavy troops to check it out. Looks like that's all for today. Uchiha Obito nodded and replied in a deep voice, "Take the body of Itachi, let's leave first." Now Uchiha Obito is naturally not stupid, he can also clearly know. The battle between Uchiha Itachi and Sasuke, although it didn't last long. His battle with Gongyi also didn't last long. However, the two sides are facing each other, and the momentum created is extremely huge. Now, as time goes by, there will definitely be some movement in Iwagakure village. The half-body of the Mask Obito belongs to White Zetsu. Now his perception is invisibly very strong. Through the reminder just now, the Mask Obito can also vaguely perceive the surrounding situation. The current plan is still, continue, for Mask Obito, do not want premature exposure yet. So although there is some resentment towards Gongyi, he doesn't want to lose the big because of the small. Good. Hearing the Mask Obito finished speaking, he nodded and sank into the ground. When he reappeared, he had already come to the body of Uchiha Itachi. Mr. Gongyi, they want to take Itachi's body. Everything just happened in the blink of an eye. At this time, Sasuke, who was standing on the side, saw Ju appear immediately. Drink, he said, running towards where he walked, biting Kiba and taking out the kunai from his waist. Now although the chakra has been completely exhausted, his physical strength has also recovered a little. As for Uchiha Itachi, although Sasuke is still not too awake yet. However, after all, it is his own brother, and he will never allow others to take his body away. Uchiha Itachi is the ninja of Konoha village. Although he has defected from the village, his body cannot be taken away from you. N, who had just emerged from the ground, suddenly heard a voice coming from above his head. He didn't care about Sasuke rushing in at all, but the sudden power made him have to warn him. Looking up, his pupils dilated instantly. Gong Yi didn't know when he came to this characteristic kunai that belongs to Hiraishin's art. When it appeared in the air, Gong Yi also appeared, and he waved his hand towards below. PFF'd. A touch of golden light is so fast that people can't see clearly at all, and it will immediately go away. Pierce the hole. His entire half-body has not completely sunk into the ground, and his whole life has no life. A pair of yellow pupils were filled with unbelievable belief. He didn't even have time to say a word, he became a corpse and got stuck here. When Jin Dun's powerful destructive power is condensed and combined, it becomes a single attack method, which is very terrifying. Mask Obito stood behind, and when he saw Gong Yi's use of Jin Dun so skillfully, he couldn't help but feel tight. Now I am not afraid of the huge destructive power of this Kekkei Genkei, but I am afraid of being able to completely destroy it as a master. Because Mask Obito knows that Gong Yi, the iconic Kekkei Genkei, is notoriously destructive. Now, it has been so accurate by Gong Yi Master that it can only be killed instantly, but it doesn't hurt the other surroundings at all. That's the case. It's a bit of a shudder. Hee, is it a clone? Landing next to Ju's corpse, Gong Yi quietly looked at Ju, who had begun to melt, with a sneer. Gong Yi is not surprised at all about. This is definitely an avatar. Now his ability is very difficult to deal with, and it is very difficult to really kill him. His high-yielding spore-producing abilities can be borrowed from the numerous physical clones that the Hashirama cell divides. Later, if I remember correctly, he created almost 100,000 bodies by consuming part of the tailed beast chakra sealed in the body of Geto Mazo, demonic statue of the outer path. After the Fourth Ninja War, the number became the main force against the ninja coalition. Ultimate behind the scenes in the entire ninja world, Gong Yi is very familiar with him. Tampered with the steel of the Uchiha family, calculated Uchiha Obito, calculated Uchiha Madara, calculated the entire ninja continent. Black-white Zetsu, although they can be integrated, they can also be split into individuals. But, they're not alone. White Zetsu is the one who got caught in Geto Mazo, demonic statue of the outer path, by infinite Tsukuyomi, and Black Zetsu is the will of Otsutsuki Kagaya. The real final pusher, it is this Black Zetsu who is agitating. It is recorded in the original book that the original before the world continent, the Six Paths Immortal Brothers worked together to seal Kagaya itself. But before being sealed, Kagaya created Black Zetsu with her own will. So Black Zetsu survived, and even the Six Paths sages were kept secret. Since then, he has been active in secret, using Indra and his descendants, the Uchiha family, to tamper with the stone inscription left by the Six Paths Immortal, so that people who read the inscription are misled and distorted the facts. Well, because of this, we must be able to use the Geto Mazo, demonic statue of the outer path, summoned by Madara to revive White Zetsu, and finally let Kabuto find Madara's body and join forces with Obito. One purpose, to bring Otsutsuki Kagaya back to life. The real threat is not White Zetsu. Gong Yi knew that Black Zetsu, the product of Kagaya Hein's will, was the one who really needed the most attention. The push for all this may seem a bit complicated, but it's quite simple to put it bluntly. That is, Black Zetsu instigated Uchiha Madara to fight Senju Hashirama in order to resurrect Otsutsuki Kagaya, and then assisted Madara to use the Hashirama cells in his mouth to open Rinnegan. At the same time, the information left by the Six Paths Immortal Nenga Shrine was modified, and the method of saving the Uchiha family was led to infinite Tsukuyomi, and Uchiha Madara was guided in disguise. This kind of mind and countless years of planning and deployment can finally be carried out perfectly as scheduled. Absolutely not. Now imagine, that would just act as a scout everywhere. Roll. Seal. Came back to my senses, Gong Yi didn't. Let's ignore Ju's avatar. At the outer position, Gong Yi's consciousness also sensed that there were already ninjas from Iwagakure village. Naturally, he didn't think about it anymore, and now that he has sealed Uchiha Itachi's body, he is ready to leave here. The situation is tense and he doesn't want to be seen by the people of Iwagakure yet. Chapter 640, Uchiha's Glory. Now you go on like this, and sooner or later you will pay the price. Mask Obito's eyes were gloomy. He looked at Gong Yi in front of him and said coldly, I hope you do it well. Good for it. Gong Yi turned and looked back at Uchiha Obito. You are warning me. Of course you can think so. Mask Obito is no longer in the mood to talk nonsense with Gong Yi. He has really felt annoyed and angry now, and everything about him is starting to deviate gradually because of Gong Yi's appearance. Your warning may be useful to the rest. Shaking his head, Gong Yi seemed to be playful, but for me, just relying on you like this may make me feel less pressure. Is it? Seeing Gong Yi's contempt, the Mask Obito smiled coldly, as if he felt that Gong Yi was short-sighted. Since you think so, then I look forward to seeing you again in the future. Will I still be as confident as today? Okay, I also look forward to the next time you see me. Will you still be as arrogant as you are today? The confrontation just now, Gong Yi did not let Uchiha Obito in the slightest. In the conversation between the two now, he still has the upper hand. Of fear in his heart, so he can't make him feel better either. If I didn't know the original book, I might have mentioned the threat of the Mask Obito everywhere. But, for a Gong Yi who is like a god of prophets, all the dynamics of Obito can't escape his control. He knows everything about the Mask Obito perfectly, which can't threaten him at all. Furthermore, since he has already mastered the power of 10 tails, how can there be anyone in this world who threatens him? Hey, let's wait and see. Mask Obito snorted coldly, and the air in front of him began to distort, sucking his whole body into it. The ninjas of Iwagakure village were already very close, and he didn't want to talk anymore. Okay, let's get out of here too. Seeing that Uchiha Obito had left, Gong Yi came to Sasuke's side. After placing his hand on his shoulder, the Hiraishin technique was activated immediately. When he reappeared, he had already arrived in the territory of the country of grass. Uchiha Itachi's body has been sealed in the scroll by himself, so there is no need to worry. As for the current ghost lamp Shueyu and others, Gong Yi didn't care too much. If the ninjas from Iwagakure village simply can't escape, keeping them would be a waste of the village's resources. The night is as silent as stagnant water. After returning from Iwagakure village, Gong Yi took Sasuke back to the palace. Everything was arranged, and now the two of them are sitting here facing each other. Mr. Gong Yi, Itachi is in the end. Sasuke looked uneasy, and the whole person seemed a little overwhelmed. He can't bear all the things that are happening now. The whole incident did not develop like the original book at all, and Sasuke naturally began to be a little confused. From the scourge of Akatsuki before, to today Uchiha Itachi wants to take his eyes away. It seems that you still don't know anything about your brother. A pair of deep black eyes looked at Sasuke, and seemed to be able to clearly detect his change. Especially now in his eyes, Gong Yi can clearly feel a kind of power is beginning to transform and sublime. Mr. Gong Yi, what do you mean? Hearing Gong Yi finish speaking, Sasuke's face became more complicated. According to what you said before, it is actually completely wrong. Shaking his head, Gong Yi said in a deep voice, Itachi actually completely injected pupil power into your body before dying. Mr. Gong Yi, what did you say? Sasuke's face showed disbelief, belief, and even his eyes widened, as if he felt that he had heard it wrong. Since Itachi has already explained it to you before, then his purpose of doing this is naturally to want to go protect you. Seemingly anticipating Sasuke's expression, Gong Yi didn't stop and continued, Itachi has a connection with me, and I told you before. Now Itachi has an incurable disease, and even I can't do anything about it, so. In disguise, he has pinned everything on your brother. With your character, if you knew about these things, you would probably choose to refuse anyway. Gong Yi smiled faintly and looked at Sasuke, who was completely stunned. So I think Itachi has used his own method to pin his spirit on you, and at the same time let you come and go to continue to guard Uchiha. The glory of a family. Itachi actually. Soon. When Gongyi simply combined everything in the original book and what Itachi had said to himself, and finished speaking to Sasuke, he became silent. His fists were clenched, and the current Uchiha Sasuke couldn't believe it. If other people talk to him about this, he will definitely fight with them. Because Sasuke thinks that all this is simply unbelievable. Believe it. However, it is not the others who are now telling them about these things. It's his own teacher Gongyi. The 5 generations of Hokage, the master of Konoha village, are so powerful that everyone in the ninja world is daunted. Such an existence, how could he deceive himself now? Even if he can't believe it, Sasuke can guess what happened before. Itachi sacrificed himself to fulfill him. Now after Gongyi finished speaking, Sasuke has been silent here. Since things have happened, you don't need to blame yourself. Coming to Sasuke's side, Gongyi patted him on the shoulder. It's all Itachi's choice, so you also have to respect his choice. Reinvigorate the Uchiha family, revive the Konoha village at the same time, and unfold the ultimate peace Itachi desires. Gongyi looked at Sasuke and had already started his own guidance. That's right. Gongyi, who has no time to waste, is still here to continue talking about this with Sasuke. At the same time, he was constantly on behalf of Itachi, telling Sasuke what he thought. In fact, in disguise. Now it's also for my future plans. Goal is to unify the world of ninjas. It is natural to need strong combat power now, and Sasuke, who can open the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in the future, is naturally one of them. This time, through the death of Uchiha Itachi, he just forced his will on Sasuke's body. Sasuke will also do his best to complete his future plans. After all, Gongyi added a bit of Itachi's mind to it. Well, Sasuke unconsciously, naturally has been more firmly established by his master.